Before you skip ahead or continue, check the timestamps, check the playlist for specific floor sets, check out my merch store for Deep Dungeon related apparel. Cue the intro. Hello, I'm Angelus Demonus with a Dawntrail live tutorial guide for Palace of the Dead solo on Pictomancer if your goal is to get the Necromancer title. If you do intend to aim for the Necromancer title, and you have stumbled upon this video but have yet to even unlock Palace of the Dead, I highly suggest you give my How to Aetherpool farming leveling video a look. While it discusses an optimal method to level your deep dungeon power levels as a solo gamer in general, it also will provide information on how to unlock Palace of the Dead and how to approach it completely solo from the beginning on any job. This live tutorial guide will cover floors 51 to 100 and will showcase the strength of Pictomancer on these floors. I'll make some notes on some important tips you'd want to watch out for on these floors in the description below, but in reality, Pictomancer will decimate floors 51 to 100. It will definitely benefit you to take a look at all the floors, but be sure to give a little extra attention to the floor 90 boss and floors 91 to 100, as there will be a bit of a noticeable difficulty spike to them. I highly suggest gandering at the timestamps in the description below if you wish to look for specific tips that may help you or floors you might be stuck on. If you are looking for the other floor sets, be sure to check the playlist on the upper right card or in the description below for the link. If you have any questions on anything that goes on with this run, things I may not have covered, or if you are confused on anything, be sure to leave them in the comments below and I will try to respond as soon as I can. No single question is silly, and every single experience is unique. Be sure to keep me posted on how your own runs are going. Good luck, have fun, and I hope this guide helps you. 51 to 60, guys, welcome after you finish the first 1 to 50. A couple things to note about the floor sets so far. Starting at floor 1, the difficulty scale, hopefully my hand is showing on camera. The difficulty scale will kind of climb up. If anything, 21 to 30 is like up there, maybe kind of evens out and then kind of goes in again. Like 21 to 30 is probably like your hardest part here. Once you get to 51 now, it's gonna actually dive back down and then kind of scale up a little bit. Actually, your first difficult floor will probably be 81, more specifically the 90 boss, and then 91 will get a little bit more difficult after that. It's just the way the content's designed. It's also one thing where even if you're starting off with a lower armor, even lower than I currently have, which is about 62-55, you could be as low as like 10-20. You can get through 51 to 60. But if actually you're on like 11 to 20 or like 21 to 30 and you only had like 10, I would actually recommend people to get a little bit higher before you feed, especially on like a serious run. That's kind of the difference there. The next couple of floors we are going to zoom through, especially on Pictomancer. Now, the rooms are going to be a lot tighter, going to feel a little claustrophobic, which also means traps are going to be a little bit annoying to avoid. We're still going to hug those walls, but we're still going to be careful in terms of our pulls. We're going to try not to pull on the run. We're going to try to keep the pulls in the hallways and probably just get to the exit, but we're also going to move very, very fast on these floors. Last note here, we do have our max potion on our hotbar right now, and that is the highest tier potion you're going to get from drops, so that is what we're going to use as backup for healing. Also, you're going to start to see our armor really start to climb up from this point forward. I think it's still capped. You can actually tell when we walk in. If your armor is capped for the floor, it'll be italicized in yellow. If it's uncapped, it'll just be white, which means that the cap is a little bit higher than what I have. And just to keep it simple, if you're uncapped, that means there's a higher chance you can get an upgrade. If it's capped, it's a lower chance you can get an upgrade up until we get to the much higher floors. So we'll definitely be trying to get to those silver chests and those bronze chests to see if we can pick up any free potsherds. But this will start to really fly through on Pictomancer and the damage that it can output. So let's give it a show. 51 to 60, let's move on. Okay, now as always, I'm going to open with a strength. Even though I have 1, it's okay. We want to get through these floors pretty fast and try to get to these chests as we can. 1 G-City, Deep Eye is already dead. As mentioned also before, is that I will talk about things as they become a problem. But a lot of times, even with Pictomancer, it's like in this unique situation where, to me, it makes no point talking about it if it just dies in 1 G-City, right? They're all sight, so I guess that's one thing to talk about, but if you're killing like I'm killing right now, who cares what they do? Just kill them. This thing will do a little bit of a tank buster if it hits me, which it doesn't. I see the exit there already, so I'm gonna go there already. The only thing that you may want to worry about is the pudding, which is a caster, so they're not going to get up close to you, they're just going to cast from afar. Probably the one thing that's actually going to do damage to you. They are also proximity, so if they're blocking the chest, then you do want to kill them. Blocking a chest or the exit, they're going to be kind of your priority kill, just so you can get them out of the way. Since everything else is sight, then you can kind of wait for them to turn, but in all honesty, your Pictomancer, just kill it and just move on. By what floors should you be 99, 99 Aetherpool? Honestly, you can be as far as like 140, 150. You can be like, okay, let's put it this way. You can be 90, 90 Aetherpool as high as like 150, 160. The difference between 90 and 99 is not going to be like drastic. You know, we're not talking like a massive power level difference. It's still going to be a difference, but it's not going to be too bad at all. That's why starting at the lower arm and armor that we have right now, which you can see, our arm is actually uncapped, but our arm is capped here. It doesn't need to be that high, especially when you're doing your initial prog. Now, one thing I was mentioning kind of a little bit before is that if you're like in a situation where you believe that you're ready to get Necromancer, like you have all of your runs ready, you've done your practice, you've done your studying, whichever may apply, that's when you probably want to be 99-99. But if you're doing your first runs, you're progging initially, and you're still kind of learning the content, it's perfectly okay to be a lower arm and armor, simply because you will get it on the climb up, assuming you're getting to silver chest, and you're gonna level that arm and armor simultaneously while trying to prog the content. So it definitely works, you know, both in two ways. We got a brightens there, so we got a +2, and now it's capped now at 58. So now you're gonna, like I said, you're gonna start to see that arm and armor try to go a little bit higher on these floors because it's a little bit more appropriate. We're gonna use our first instance of an alteration since I have an extra, and I'm okay with this one only because we have enough power to kill it if it becomes mimics. But basically, it will change the room. So we have 3 rooms here with enemies. Whatever the enemies were going to be, it changes the entire room. Either Mimic or Mandragora, or how I call it, Corrigans. It's something that I won't use very often, unless we're into the much higher floors, like 171, 181. But we're going to demonstrate what it does right here since it's free right now, and that we have the firepower to murder the Mimics without too much of a concern as Pictomancer. So we're going to see what the game decides to give me. Getting a silver chest here. Upgrades are coming in consistently. I mean, how many chests have we opened on those previous floors? But that's one reason why, you know, on the previous floors, you're not expecting to get upgrades. But if you did get an upgrade, it's really nice because you're not expecting it to show up. And it kind of helps you kind of get those a little bit of a head start in terms of leveling that arm and armor. Okay, Intuition. I'm gonna see what the altar room is. It is Corrigan, so we have a good example of our first case of Corrigans on this run. Basically, the Pygmioi, or the Corrigans, they will die to initial action. They will just die to the first thing. They have, not that they have low HP, it's just their interaction of the content. You'll also see that they do not aggro. You can see the symbol on the left of their level. If they have that blue symbol, they are not going to aggro. Now, they do a scream when you kill them. And if you kill them in range, they will stun you for like 2 seconds. So that's what that scream does. It's not that, you know, it's not a threatening thing. It doesn't do that much damage, but that is what that scream does. Also, our first instance here where we hit a silencing and an amnesia trap, and I haven't talked about this because I always keep forgetting, but it might be a good thing to have echo drops on your character or your inventory because you are a caster. Those echo drops do share a cast with your sustaining potions, but as a caster, it might be a pretty good idea to have them because it will allow you to continue casting if you were to hit that silencing trap. And especially with these floors in particular, it's one that you may want to consider because traps are going to be a little common to step on since the floors are so tight here. I'm on 110 PoTD at the moment. When does it get sketchier? Well, depending on the job, I would definitely put it... Actually, you know, 111 is one of those unique floors where the enemies there are a little spicy. When we get there, we'll definitely talk about them. But I would say 111 is where you want to concern yourself with a couple pulls there. After that, you're probably going to look into maybe 141 as probably the more spicier section to get through, where you see a lot of people commonly die, especially on their new runs. 111 is special because it has a lot of interesting enemies that do interesting mechanics. Actually, even veteran runners will consider doing raisings on 111. Even people who have Omnis will do raisings on 111. That's how much of a concern those floors are. But then the next time you kind of see a little bit more concern is like 141. The pots here are proximity, so they are a priority pull here. I want to get them out of the way because it would aggro regardless, so I'm going to pull it in the hallway, which is what I did. I still need a couple more kills, so we're just going to keep pulling things until we're out of here. We are getting to the silver chest, so we want to make sure that we do that. I probably don't need to pull anything, although I could pull the gremlin. Holding there. Ooh. I don't raising on 111 personally, but I completely understand why people raising, and I do not blame anyone for raising there. No items, who cares for Pictomancer? It's kind of the response to Pictomancer as we're going through these floors, right? Who cares? We just have damage. Look at that damage, dude! There's one thing that I'm going to just be wide-eyed about, you know, this being the new job in Dawntrail, but what power it has is just insane with what it can bring to the table. It's probably, it's one of the coolest things that I've seen in Deep Dungeon in general. And it's gonna be one reason why, potentially, you do end up liking this job as much as I do. And why, maybe if you're looking at these videos, or looking at this run right now, and you're kind of wondering what's the hubbub about Pictomancer, you know, why are people considering this, why are people getting Necromancer on this job, it's things like this that you can see. It's just, the power is just undeniably strong. And the speed in which we go through, I mean, so many people complain about, oh, 1 to 150 is such a slog, it takes such a long time. Honestly, this might be the one job where you're like, you know what, I'm having a lot of fun because we're just seeing everything blow up, you know? Could be a thing. My strength is currently down, but I will not get it up right now. Okay, already off to the next floor. We just have to find the exit. Checking the chests, just so we can see if I can get a strength, etc. Sight, which is gonna be good. Landmine on the corner. Look at that. Look at this corner trap, dude. If I hug the corner like that, I'm avoiding it, but usually your typical movement probably doesn't let you that. You probably hit that. So that's an example right there of like a treacherous trap along the wall. You know, we tell you to hug the walls, you know? We've been working on our slide casting, pre-casting motifs, hugging the walls to avoid traps, but on these floors in particular, you're avoiding like 80%, 85% of traps. You're not avoiding all the traps, but it is giving you a little bit of a higher chance of survival. Purite. Might get lucky to get off this floor with these kills here. Doing AoE pulling here just because we're Pictomancer and we have damage. We're out. 3 kills and L, let's go. Don't need to care about anything else right now. I was playing Pictomancer earlier, says Panda, and I'm amazed one-shotting mobs without crit. Yeah. It's amazing. Again, if you've had some experience with some other jobs, you might still be surprised. I mean, if you're walking into Pictomancer as your first job, man, it might be interesting when, like, you may try other jobs after that. You might get spoiled on Pictomancer, not gonna lie. But, like, going from the previous jobs into this one, you might be surprised. And, again, it might be the reason why you kind of end up with this job. It's appealing. You know, I can understand the appeal of it. I can see why you're seeing a lot of people in the community kind of look into it. Alright, so let's see here. I may not have enough damage for this Mimic. because I started late with my burst, although my other one's coming in. Nope, hammer's enough to kill this. No problem with the Mimic. A lot of jobs may not even kill the Mimic that fast, like a Pictomancer just did without Strength on. But it's, again, another appeal of this class. One of the important things we can talk about with Pictomancer, though, especially on these lower floors, something I may have taken for granted, is that you do want to spread your burst. I think I did talk about how I open with a GCD, and then I do my Muse. Is one way to kind of spread the damage out, because you don't want to overkill too much, and you want to try not to get to the habit of overkilling. That's how you can go really fast in this class, is that you're kind of distributing that damage to, you know, the enemies, so on and so forth. You wouldn't want to use like your wing Muse into your Mog Beam all at once into an enemy that basically dies to one thing. And it is possible to actually burn both of those buttons, even if the enemy's getting one shot, just because of the way the animations work, so you kind of want to give it some respect there. Already on 59, what's our time check here? 12 minutes in, we're going real fast. I'm gonna pop a Strength here, and a Steel, because we already have it. I am at 1 Strength, but again, that's not too big of a deal. I can probably pop a Fortune here, just because we may get some chest drops as we kind of go for the exit. Sight is great. I may go towards the chests here. Okay, let's backtrack a little bit to see if I can maybe squeeze out another Strength here. It's one of the small downsides to like going fast, if you will. I do start skipping chests, which means I may start missing power-ups, but we don't really need to care too much about our power-ups until, really, I would say 91 or 100 plus. Okay. As you can see, 1 GCD, 1 Muse, boom, dead. You don't need to go too strong on the attacks here. Even Hammer here, I would rather do a GCD to kill so I can save the Hammer on the next pull. It's one of the caster things that does exist. It's like not too much of a problem on, I would say, some other classes. But when you have burst damage like that, you do kind of want to optimize it. And it's a good thing to get used to, in my opinion. It could go a long way to get used to, like, you know, knowing when your damage will kill something as a caster over when it will just, like, you know, just miss it, you know? Okay, going into the boss here, Steel. I don't care. I'll open with the Lust on this 60 boss. 60 boss, I would say you want to give it a little bit of respect, especially if you're not using sustaining potions. Make sure your max potions are on your hotbar here. I'm going to open with the Lust here. And one thing that we'll talk about this boss now, but it'll be actually even more important on the 160 boss, is that this thing will drop a damage DOT puddle, and you want to be in motion with the puddle. One thing that you may catch yourself with Pictomancer is that you may be caught casting, and then the puddle drops. This will be an example right here. This is what you don't want to happen, because if you move after the puddle drops, you are almost always going to take DOT damage, and then it'll add to the damage that you're taking overall from this boss. So you want to be very careful with that, because that is what's going to possibly kill you on the higher version of this enemy, because you take that extra damage and you really don't have that much healing to work with. But on this floor, it's going to be a good habit, considering you're not going to be using sustainings if you don't use any sustainings. Now, if you do use them, this fight would just be whatever. You can just, like, kind of half attention it, whatever. But here I'm trying to be a little attentive because I want to make sure I try to limit the sustaining potion usage. Dash should be good to kind of help you come out of that too. Now here, after those puddles go off, you're going to time the knockback to go to an open spot. In this version, the lower floor version, there's only going to be so many orbs on the ground, so it's going to be pretty easy to find that opening. But let me tell you, those orbs do a good amount of damage. So if, like, I'm at this HP and I get hit with an orb, even with Steel on, there's a possibility that I could die. So you want to make sure that you respect those orbs going in. And that is the 160 boss. I would say the 60 boss. The 70 boss probably doesn't actually hit you as hard as the 60 boss, but the 60 boss does so many double attacks. It's a little bit more concerning. Then come with a couple of bosses will be coming up moving forward after this one. So that is 51 to 60. 61 to 70. Honestly, not gonna see too much different from 51 to 60. I mean, the enemies have changed. They've changed their costumes into different things, but you'll probably do exactly the same thing, which is blow everything up and get to the boss. Again, I'll point out some highlights on the floor in case we need to run into it. We like to call this Jurassic Park, because there's going to be a lot of dinosaurs that we'll deal with, but they will all die the same in quick fashion because Pictomancer is just that kind of job. Doing our little checks here, if you want to use some food, you are more than welcome to use some food. We have our max potions, we have our sustaining potions on the bar, and let's hop on in. A couple checks here as well. Mine the wall hugging, mine the motif early casting, opening with an opening strength here so we can kill really fast. But let's get to it, huh? Might open with that fortune so that we can kind of maybe get a couple chests going along here. These are all sight. A lot of these enemies are going to be sight aggro. Did not pre-cast my motif. Bad on me. Oopsie doopsie. It's okay, we have hammer and we have strength on, so they're just gonna melt. May not get off on this kill, but that's fine. We have a patrol sight aggro Elvis, which will do kind of an unavoidable attack that'll give you a vuln down. That's only if it actually stays alive long enough to do so. And we're already out. Check all these chests since I'm here. First instance of a raising. I get to talk about this, although we didn't get to see it on the previous floor. Raisings start at 51 plus. They stop at 180. You cannot get a raising past 180, but you also can't get a raising before 51. We didn't see it on the previous floor, but we saw it now. This is also going to be the floor in which you see your first instance of a resolution. Resolution will be available from 61 plus. It's going to be one of the key things that we need for particularly floor 100, floor 140, and eventually floor 191. And this will be one of the reasons why we may want to start checking a little bit of chests, because we will want to make sure that we hopefully pick up a resolution. But those are the two new palms that are going to show up that you have not seen on the first 50 floors. Armor is uncapped, and so we're getting some upgrades once again. Here you may see me actually kind of take a little bit of time, maybe checking a couple chests to maybe make sure we get at least one resolution. But I'm not going to go too crazy about it. Oops, I forgot to do my thing, but that's perfectly fine. I am pulling too fast. Too fast, too furious. Getting into this room, but then holding here, not moving any forward so we don't hit a trap. The second raising's in, so the raisings are coming in real nice. Pausing in this chest here so it doesn't wombo combo me with an explosion. Pulling this one. Where's the chest? Gonna pull the alligator. And we go to the chest, and then off we go to the next floor. Witching. Pretty good. And one of the things that I do want to stress here is that I am almost always opening with a strength on. It might be something you may want to consider. It is something that I might do even on all the floors climbing up to kind of get that nice opening 8-minute damage boost, which could really help with time consideration on the higher floors. But strength is actually going to be one of the most important palms for Pictomancer, in my opinion. I mean, it kills everything a lot faster. I mean, you know, pushes out a lot of damage, but it could also be, you know, best defense is a good offense. So if you kill it fast, you don't have to really worry about your defense. That's one thing to take into consideration with this class. Wyvers, again, we've seen them on the previous floor. They are going to be the one that you may want to at least be a little caring for, because they will get progressively harder. They are proximity, so that's one thing to note, because if they're in your way, like this one is in particular, I have to kill it, because it's going to aggro. So having that knowledge beforehand kind of will help you make your decisions on what to pull before you walk into a floor, because let me tell you, pulling that thing before you aggro it could be a lot safer than running past it, aggroing it, and then also hitting a trap on top of that, right? So you want to get these out of the way beforehand, before they cause you a problem. That's what's kind of important about, you know, choosing your pulls, choosing your priority on how you should get things out of the way. So we're pulling both Wyvers here, because they're on top of the exit. I thought this would aggro, but it's okay. I was going to try to get through anyway. Alright, check this chest, and off we go to the next floor. It is a purity. Don't need it yet. Don't need to talk about it yet. We are on 64 already. Still checking silver chests to get those upgrades. We are now 63, 62. We started today at 58, 52. So they've kind of evened out a little bit. Always try to get into the habit of getting those motifs up post-combat. Gonna be something that you really want to try to get used to as you're climbing up through these floors. Trying to get the splash damage here so I can get both of them. Flight, we are using the flights. They cut the amount of kills you need by about half. And that means you're going faster. You know, if you needed 6 kills, you now need 3. You need 8 kills, you now need 4. If you need 9 kills, you need 5, because it rounds up. So one thing to note about the flight, but of course it's hard to really, you know, assume that as you're going in. I'm going to take the effort to get this chest, and then off we go to the exit. Oh, there's actually another chest here. That is a bronze chest. It is... oh, max potion. No luck on the extra Potsherd quite yet, but that's okay. We have 1 Potsherd at the moment, and we have our 20 sustaining. It's not going to be a surprise if you average just the 2 Potsherds from the guaranteed 50 to 100. That is perfectly fine and perfectly normal. If you were to get a Potsherd on 7 to 100 by bonus, that's really nice, you know, especially if you're working with a lot less. Definitely take advantage of that if that happens, but there's not much you can do with it, it's just RNG. Okay, big floor here. I'm gonna use a sight here just to kind of help me with positioning. May as well use it on this type of room, since it is multiple exits, and this actually works out because I know I can go towards the silver chest coming in here. Delete that Wyver, and delete this Wyver. This, I believe, is flighted. Ooh, a Mimic, so let's focus the Mimic, actually. No, I should kill it in time. Because I had 2 hammers. Good. No concern there. Let's get the silvers. Let's see where they are at. 2 of these enemies are Sound Aggro, so I don't have to worry about that. That's a landmine trap that we walk past over there. It's one of the other debuff traps over here. No real reason to ever step on it. Gonna kill the Wyver just because it's looking at me funny. Overkill on that one. Got the upgrade. Great. We are 63, 64, moving towards our arm and armor and climbing up. And take into consideration, we are currently uncapped with our arm and armor. We're not at the whatever the cap is at this level, but we're still doing an enormous amount of damage. So that's one other reason why starting at a lower arm and armor is perfectly okay. Because we're not talking leaps and bounds of, like, you know, the difference between 60 and 70, the difference between 70 and 80. I mean, there is definitely a difference between 60 and 90, but it's not that massive of a difference. So starting at a lower arm and armor, taking this advantage while you're progging to level your power level here, not a terrible idea. Okay, thing that's interesting here, auto heal disable means I'm not regenerating my HP. Now we have a interesting situation here, because if these chests were to explode, I will not be able to make back that HP. So one thing that you may want to consider as a Pictomancer is you may want to open with your Tempera Coat while opening a silver, because it will absorb some of that damage. Otherwise, I may have to consider doing a sustaining potion here to get my HP back up, or actually go AFK and wait for my potion to come back in. So we're going to pop a coat here, pop the chest number 1. Oh baby, that already broke it. Pop the chest 2. Okay, so now, see, our HP is still in order here, because it broke my shield initially. So something to very much think about. That is definitely a Pictomancer kind of thing, since you do have that shield available. And if you're kind of conserving those the sustaining potions like I am right now, these are things you may want to think about on the climb. Hopefully this doesn't explode. Good. My strength is down. I may consider repopping it maybe on the next floor or the floor after that. Mostly dead. Okay, still need a couple kills here. Gold chests over there. I'm gonna go for it. These are the Crocus site, the Wyver's proximity, so I can sneak behind the Crocodile, and we made it through no problem with an auto heal disable. Typically, you're probably popping a sustaining potion in auto heal, something to think about. But as I mentioned, since we're being a little conservative here, something to think about in terms of strategy and trying to mitigate the usage of it. Into 67. I may use the strength when I'm stepping into the exit here. First case of the resolution. So I'm really happy to see that. Now I can probably kind of ignore some of these chests now. It is extremely rare to not see resolution, but we've had it happen to community members before, but let's just hope that you do pick up a resolution on your climb up. If you're, like, I would definitely take the time to really check the chests until you get the first resolution, and not kind of go in a way where now you're desperate to find one when you step into 91. So be sure to, like, at the very least, get that one secure, and then maybe you can go a little bit faster, but the resolution is going to be really important to have, especially by the time you reach floor 100. You don't really need it before then. It's only really 100 that you need that resolution. Gonna check these chests first. Sight, great. Using that smudge for a little bit of movement speed. Now I'm gonna pop the strength. Oh, actually, I already have a strength on, right? We used it before, so we're good to go. Into the next floor. We're gonna do a time check here, just to kind of give like a showcase of like what our time is, because we've been going really fast. We are at 11 minutes into 68, so we're moving quickly. Which is what I expect out of this job. Honestly, this job could probably go faster than many other jobs. Even some of the popular ones, or the old popular ones, if you will. Holding, just in case of a trap. 65. Look, it's leveled out. We started 50, what did I say? 58, 52, and they've leveled out at the end of the day, so... it would be like that sometimes. Checking this room before I check that other chest. Bronze chest, I would like to do that because it could be a Potsherd. Nope, still no Potsherd. A little unlucky here, but that's okay. The crocodile is sight, so I'm gonna take care of him so I can get to this other room. Hold, because it's in the middle of the room. Okay, now we pop. Don't want to run to the risk of, like, hitting the thingy. This is not the exit how... Ooh, the Triceratops is proximity and blocking that bronze chest, so I want to get there right now. In case it's a Potsherd. Still unlucky there. Alright, let's proceed to the exit, which seems to be on the south side, because it's the only room I haven't revealed yet. Hugging these walls to avoid those traps. Mylodon there, that is a sight patrol. Here, we mentioned about the echo drops, so I'm going to use one here to kind of unsilence myself. If you have them, great. If you don't have them, take it into consideration. I think you can just get it outside at the NPC of Quarry Mill. I think there's an NPC there, you can just buy them off of the guy. Or you can craft them, whichever works for you. Okay. Palms are filling out. We have 2 rages. Sorry, we do have 2 rages. We have 2 razings, 1 resolution, full strength and steals, looking pretty good. Yeah, for Pictomancer, might be a good consideration, especially if you find yourself a little prone to traps, that having an Echo Drop might be a really good idea to have. It is something that you don't need on some of the other classes, but you are a caster and you cast spells, so you would want to have that at your disposal. Okay. Need a couple more kills. I may check a couple of rooms. At least this one. I'll go for this one. Alluring trap. Alright, I'm gonna be a little careful. I'm gonna pop my shield here. I actually, you know, one option, like I was mentioning earlier, you have sleep on Pictomancer. You don't have that in a lot of other classes, so because these enemies, I knew these enemies could sleep, not a terrible thing to consider as your opening consideration for a luring trap to pop the sleep here. That is what we did right there. I am in the spawn room, so I can make this move here. I did kind of pop all of them and wake them up with my AoE, but I'm kind of confident I should be okay with this pull, I think. No. If I wasn't missing, it would have been okay. Alright, we're good. Into the next floor. Again, a nice example there. That is kind of the one blaring weakness of Pictomancer. Even with Steel on, you are still a caster. your defense still kind of sucks. So you have to make sure that you take care of that and make sure that you don't kind of put yourself in a rough situation like that. That might be a good example there of like, okay, Pictomancer's not invulnerable in here, even though you have all that damage. Going with our 5 opening here, this boss is a lot more tame than its 100 plus floor version, 170 version. It's going to open with a Tank Buster, it'll do an AoE Electrogenesis here. I didn't get my hammer up, which is fine. It'll do a Douse, which is an AoE on it. But it is a thing that just buffs it. Now I'm going to move it away from it, because look at the buff right now. It's hasted if it's in that buff. Boom. I get the hit here. And then I'm going to time a sprint here. Again, I'm going to mitigate my usage of the sustaining potion. I'm going to sprint right now to avoid this thing. If I don't sprint, I get hit with it, but it doesn't do that much damage. Honestly, you can block it with your shielding. One thing to note about this puddle is that this puddle is only a buff for the boss. I could stand in the puddle and it does absolutely nothing to me. So one thing to note about that, it's actually going to be not important on Pictomancer as it is on some other classes, but if you're kind of worried about where you're moving, that's one thing to think about, is that it doesn't do actual damage to you. So you can just kind of stand in it, whatever. I'll pop a shield here because it's going to do a little bit of a tank buster. If it even breaks my shield, we'll see. Maybe it doesn't break my shield. It still doesn't break my shield. And it finally broke my shield, there you go. And the boss is dead. That is the 70 boss, not too bad. You can see the damage that we took with Steel on, only using about 1 max potion. And we're good to go. That is 61 to 70, nice and clean through those floors. Let's go. I am getting Timeworn artifacts, this one. It is an old quest in Shadowbringer that is related to a relic quest. Basically, one of the relic steps asks you to get this item. You need, I don't remember, 35 or something, to progress a relic step, and they actually put it randomly into Deep Dungeon. So you can get it from a content called Delubrium Regine in the Boja area that drops, I think, 3 every time you clear, or you have a chance at getting 1 when you do Palace of the Dead. And I've just essentially left that quest open for forever. I'm never going to submit that quest so we can continue getting this item for no reason other than I think it's funny. And that's what I'm getting occasionally through the floors. 71 to 80 coming in here. Yeah, there's a couple highlighted enemies that we're going to worry about, one of which is the early Anzu, which will showcase the early Anzu, which is a patrol here. Not as scary, nearly as scary as its or 100 floors later version of it. A little bit more on the dinosaurs, birds that are going to show up, but much like the previous floors, everything is going to melt in very fast, so things are just going to die. So we're going to open with our strength. We're still going to be checking chests, but we're going to move through this floor pretty swiftly. And as mentioned up till now, I'm going to talk about enemies that are more important, but because they die so fast, it's like I don't really need to talk about them too much, right? We're doing a check here of your items first. If you're using sustaining potions, be sure you have a good amount. Make sure your max potions are on your hotbar, and we were kind of doing this in between the floors, but if you haven't already, make sure that you try to have some echo drops, which you can get from the market board, or some NPCs, some like your FC. I think your FC and FC NPC may have echo drops, but this is really good since you're a caster, so that if you hit a silence trap, you can actually at least use these to kind of remove the silence. But worth noting that it does share the same cooldown as your sustaining potion. So if you're using sustaining potions, you want to be careful about that front. Okay. Arm and armor now is 65, 66. We've been leveling that arm and armor as we're climbing up, so it's been pretty good. I'm going to predict about 70 or 80 by the time we get to 100, but let's see how this goes. So let's just opening chest. Cast the motifs as always as your opening bit. Nice opening palm here with the steel. Always remember to cast those motifs going into a strength. Alright, so let's go. Opening rage, pretty good. Got the hammer available right away, which is nice. Sometimes you can squeeze that hammer, the striking muse out before you kill an enemy, which is one thing I just did. Therefore, that cooldown can start recasting itself, which will be nice to do. A lot of these enemies that we're running into right now are Sound. The wolf... I'm sorry, let's say Sound. Sight. They're all sights. The wolves are sight. The bear is sight. Do I think Pictomancer can kill the 100 boss without resolution? Like, yes, you don't want to put yourself in that situation, though. One of the reasons why it would be nice is because if you line up your motifs for the ads, you can definitely one-shot the ads. But I would say it could possibly be even in more danger because you don't have much kiting, unlike machinists and unlike some of the other jobs. So hopefully you don't have to deal with that situation where you don't pick up a resolution. That's why one reason I'm suggesting, like, hey, take the time out of your way to check as many chests as you can starting at 61, so that you can get enough resolution, and at least you only need at least one resolution. Like, one resolution is really all you need to worry about to have on the run. So try to have at least that much, and you'll be okay. Okay, Anzu. First case of an Anzu here. Only thing I want to show with you guys is that if you're used to the Anzu in the higher floors, you usually see the wind burn that it did there, and then it'll follow in with the belly flop, except this doesn't do it. Now, what it will actually do is that it does its belly flop at a lower HP, so it's almost like an HP check thing. It'll do the belly flop under about 30 HP, so right here. So once it's under, boom, belly flop in. And it's only concerning is because if you kind of get caught off guard with, let's say, multiple Anzu, and let's say you're Pictomancer doing splash damage on a lot of things at once, that might leave you a little vulnerable to getting hit with something like that. And if you're not running a steal, that could actually cause a massive problem in terms of survival. So just note on that with the Anzu. Everything else will probably die really fast. I mean, even an Anzu will probably just get blown up with a full burst, but it is one thing that you want to watch out for if you keep it alive a little bit too long. We turn into a frog here as we're moving through the floor, but that's okay, I have a steal on. Just kind of a showcase there that I cannot open the chest while transformed. As I pop out, I'll just hit this with the DCD and we're good to go. Yep. Next floor. The only other enemy we're going to talk about later is the Bird of Prey. You'll see that on the last 3 floors. I guess the apes as well that'll show up, but the apes here are not going to be anywhere near as painful as the ones 100 floors later. Alright, let's delete these, and a Dom Mal. Now the Dom Mal would be a bit of a priority pull, so here it is a proximity enemy, and it being right on the exit means it's going to just block me from getting to the exit, so we'll have to pull it 100% just to kind of get off the floor. Okay, we're gonna have to check that other room. Safety is always good. Always good to have a safety. Getting those motifs up, using that smudge for movement. Here's our Anzu, but it's gonna die very quickly. Now, we were talking about how the Anzu does the belly flop if it drops under that 30% threshold. However, if I were to drop it there to under 30% on that first hit, it won't hop into the belly flop right away. It'll almost be like the Anzu 100 floors later, that it has to do that wind burn first, and then it has the open door to do the belly flop. So note that. So if you're killing it really fast, it's not something you have to concern yourself about right away. Safety again, love it. First instance of the ape over there. The only reason the ape's going to be worth mentioning is because it is also proximity, so if it is in your way, it does have to go. It does do Ripe Banana, but it doesn't do the whole chest thump that it does on the higher floors. So it will get an attack bonus, but it's not that big of an attack bonus, unlike its future version. Cyclops here, now the new patrol. Good pull to have, but it is a site aggro. So you probably will need to take care of the patrols that they're showing up. And that is the Cyclops. Light, we will use that because it will reduce the amount of kills I need on the next floor. Gonna check this other chest in case it's a mimic here. The second resolution. So the resolutions are coming in very well, very good. Now, I'm not going to say it's impossible to actually not see resolution. Like, I've had people who actually went through 61 to 100, never saw a resolution. But, you know, it's possible. You know, I could say, hey, make sure you check the chest next time. Hey, things happen. But more times than not, you should have at least one resolution, and I really hope you have that one resolution. Trying to do the 100 boss without one is a pain, if not close to just too difficult. Especially if you're just progging the content as your first time, right? I mean, it's hard for me, who's done the content for so long, so imagine for someone doing it for the first time. This is a high kill floor, dang. Almost had to kill everything. I think one was a respawn. Okay, let's go. Into already 75, 7 minutes into this already, so we're moving quite quickly on these floors. And this is what Picto's gonna give you. I mean, it's very interesting for a job where a lot of these enemies have mechanics. They all exist and do something, but because of the way Pictomancer is with its damage, it's like, you know, how I look at it is like, what's the point? I mean, you're just gonna kill in one GCD. It's like, you know, I don't really need to talk too much about these enemies. Can the required kill count be higher than the amount of enemies forcing you to wait for a respawn? Very good question. So, I was told a while ago, and that it was supposed to be a Eureka Ortho specific thing, that the kill count will actually dynamically change. And this is only in the situation where there's not a lot of enemies on the floor. So what I mean by that is, let's say a 3-room here, okay? Let's say there's 4 kills on the floor. Theoretically speaking, if you kill everything, then if you kill the four enemies on the floor, it will open the exit, guaranteed. However, if you were to actually kill the 4, but then something does respawn before you actually kill the 4th one, you will now need 5 instead of 4. It dynamically changes. Now, that is something I feel like I've observed in the other deep dungeons as well, where, like, theoretically, yes, you actually do technically wait for a respawn, but the only reason why that actually happens is because a respawn actually happens before you end up actually killing everything that's currently available. Now, it is an extreme rare situation where I actually have, I think, 1 or 2 situations where it seemed like I actually killed everything on the floor, and then I end up spawning a Mimic, and that pushed me to get the exit. Like, I needed that Mimic kill to get off. But I think more times than not, you're not running to the situation where you kill everything, and then you actually have to sit there and wait. Usually what happens is that something had already respawned by the time that happens. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, on the lower floors it might seem like that. That, like, you went through the floor, you went through all 3 rooms, you killed everything, and you're like, wait, I'm still not out. It's mostly because something just respawned before you actually left the exit. And that the kill count may have adjusted by the time you actually needed to get off the floor. Steal. Okay, into 77 already, flying through these floors, and we got a re-up on strength. We actually might even be able to carry that strength into the boss. Maybe, depending how fast we go. What is the range of bombs you have to kill per floor without flight? So you're looking between, on these sets of floors, Panda, you're looking as low as possibly 3, although that's very rare, from 3 to about 8. As you get higher, it kind of goes up to like 4 to 9, 4 to 10, and then when you're looking at something like 191, you're looking at 4 to 13, probably even as high as 14. It kind of does go up on those higher floors, but usually 4 and 3 are like the lowest amount that you're looking at in terms of getting off of the floor. Now, here we have our first instance of Averted Palace. Now, the only reason why I want to mention about this enemy, it is a proximity patrol, but it does a move called Revelation. If you get hit with this Revelation, it's a 30-second Hysteria, and in Hysteria, in a party, I believe Hysteria means you will actually start smacking your buddies in the party, but in solo, you are basically just like stuck there, and you can't move for that long duration, and by that time, you're probably going to die, because a lot of things are gonna happen within 30 seconds. So you want to definitely give that a little bit of respect. They do the same exact thing on the higher floors, just with a little bit more damage. But those are the other enemies I've seen kind of kill people, so you want to be very careful with them. So just the Anzu patrol, which is sight, and then the Bird of Paladin's Patrol, which is proximity. Everything else is kind of whatever, you kind of kill them in a really quick amount of time. Rage. I am actually going to use a Rage. Okay, we have our first instance here of a neat little interaction. So we have Blind. What does Blind do? Lowers our accuracy. However, a Transformation, Rage, Resolution, Lust, they cannot miss in Blind. It's just, that is just what it is. They don't miss in Blind. So in this case, this is actually really good, because I will be able to get all these kills since we had the free Rage. So something that you might be able to take advantage of if you have a blind floor. Although I would say it's more of a niche situation in that front, because you wouldn't really sacrifice your Rage simply to get off of a blind floor. I'd rather use Serenity or just deal with it, because it's not that bad. Although for Pictomancer, it can be a little bit annoying, especially when you're relying on your burst to actually get you off the floor. Okay, you're gonna check these chests as they go. Intuition, don't really care. And a trap into a chest, but that's okay, that wasn't a silver chest. So if that was a silver chest, and I opened it and then it exploded, I would have died right there. That crazy interaction of hitting a chest into the thing, but it wasn't a silver chest, so it wasn't going to kill me, although a Mimic would have been interesting if I hit the Mimic. It's like, okay. Into 79, I think I do take the Strength and Steel into the boss with how fast we're going. We got blind again. Sounds like it anyway. Yep, no big deal. Alright, getting up on those arm and armor. This is the exit, but I'm probably gonna need more than this. I'm gonna back out, go to the other room. Okay, one bird, which is great. Maybe I need, this is all I need over here. Okay, let me check the chests. We've got a silver here. I'm gonna go after this one. 67, 67, looking pretty good with the arm and armor. Okay, gonna check the chest and then off to go to the boss. In less than 14 minutes, about 15 into this floor, so again, very, very fast. Oop, hi. Gonna open with Lust on the boss. The floor 80 boss is Baby Behemoth. Now, Behemoth has a little bit of a similar rotation compared to its Papa on the higher floor, but it does things a little differently. Unlike the 180 boss, this Behemoth will be going east and west for its trounce. The rotation's also slightly different, so you'll actually see me kind of position things a little bit differently than I would in the higher version. I'm going to be using the corners here, like the corner that I'm standing on, to kind of park these Chervises here. And also going to be favoring the location that he's going to do the trounce in. Additionally, the 180 boss will meteor at 14.9%. This one will go under 10%, and the meteor is also way longer than the meteor over in the 180 boss. All of which don't quite matter, like they're all little details to the run. Generally speaking, you're probably going to explode Behemoth by the time it even really gets troublesome, especially when it gets to that burst phase with all of your damage. But that's kind of how it goes. I'd like to go east and west for this fight. A little bit of a nice preview of what you're going to experience a little bit on the 180 floor. But what's going to be funny about Pictomancer, as a little bit of a preview, is that Behemoth is actually going to be the least of your concerns, and I would say Godfather is probably the one that you're going to be more worried about, because Pictomancer does have an actual decent Behemoth, and hopefully we'll be able to very calmly show that once we get there. So unlike, let's say, you know, tossing out some comparisons on some jobs here, some of the popular ones, like, you know, if we were to take the popular classes of all the roles, So you're looking at Warrior for tank, Machinist for phase range, Pictomancer for caster, Sage for healer, Reaper for melee. I mean, I would definitely argue that Sage has like quite the easiest behemoth. Of course, you have a myriad of issues that you need to deal with on Sage because you just heal through it. Reaper is a really good, like, melee in general for Behemoth is very comfy, only because Bloodbath is extremely strong. But I would argue that Pictomancer is probably just under Sage in terms of how well you'll handle Behemoth. There is still a way to mess up Behemoth, but the burst phase of Pictomancer is pretty compact, like there's not too much going on and the cooldowns aren't too long, so all you're gonna be doing is just basically burning your burst and that's it, and then shielding for like the first meteor, like that's all you're doing, and then Behemoth's dead. If anything, maybe setting up the Lust is probably the most dangerous, but anyway, we'll worry about that when we get to 180. But just as like a little bit of a preview of what Pictomancer will bring as a job, that's what it is. So that is 81 to 90, so there you go on Pictomancer. 81 to 90. Do you like the look of this aesthetic floors, guys? This kind of dungeon feel? Well, guess what? It is changing when we step into 81 to 90. It's gonna look even more kind of grimy, like fiery lava type of floors as we go deeper and deeper down. I would say this is going to be the set that things will get a little bit harder, but because of Pictomancer's burst, you're probably not even gonna notice. Now, 90 boss coming up, Godmother. It'll actually be the first boss we actually start using sustaining potions on, because the damage is a little bit high in terms of how much he's gonna do to us. So one note to be here, but for most of you guys doing these runs, assuming you didn't burn your Potsherd for any other reason, you should definitely have a minimum of 20 sustaining potions going into this right now, because you got the guaranteed at 450. So you should be having it here, and I'm gonna start to use it on these floors. There are going to be a couple enemies we'll talk about, maybe like 1 or 2, because everything else will just die really fast. But when we get there, we'll talk about it. So let's hop in into 81 to 90. Step it in, let's go. Alright, as we do, we're going to open here with a strength. I'm going to leave the steel available though, we don't quite need the steel yet. And we got the opening strength anyway. Alright, exit's over there, but I'm going to go this way first. One enemy we probably will see right away. Oh, it didn't show up here. Okay, sorry, when we see it, we'll pull it. The one more Campa here are sound, so they're pretty easy to get through if you were to try to walk past them. Pretty easy, they just kind of do a little bit of range attacks here, but they're not going to be too threatening at all, especially on your high damage Pictomancer. Yaguaru, not a bad enemy as well, pretty much gonna die right away, so nothing worth noting on these guys. Don't even get to do anything by the time they get to me. As such is the existence of something versus a Pictomancer. Free steal here, going to the next floor. Oh, let's check this chest too. Leaving that alteration there. We are actually almost full on everything. 3 of everything except the lust which we used on the previous floor. So palms look absolutely pristine. And certainly can't complain. Checking the chest and the silver chest, definitely want to check that right now. 68, 70, 67, very good. Switching. Oops, I accidentally hit that one. Alright, let's go. Sight, useful, so we can avoid some traps here if needed. I will be a lot more loose on this type of floor layout and design going through the floors, mind you. I typically don't hit traps except for certain floors here. Okay, this bomb is the one I do want to talk about just for a second. It's not too threatening. It only does auto attacks, no telegraphs. However, if for some god-awful reason you left it alive too long, it's about a minute, I think. I don't know the full timer, but it's a lot longer than your usual enrage. It will self-destruct, almost like your classic bomb enemy in Final Fantasy. So the only situation in which that actually becomes a problem is if you hit like a luring trap and you have multiple bombs on you. Only reason why you'd even run into that issue, but definitely note that those bombs have the capability of actually killing you with self-destruct. It is technically survivable if you see it coming. Maybe you can shield beforehand, have a steal up, but look, you're a Pictomancer, you have ridiculous bursts, you should be killing it before it becomes an issue. But that is one enemy that has surprised people. So that's why it's worth noting about what it can do. But, like I said, you're Pictomancer, so you really should have the damage to kind of just get rid of it. Checking the chest here. Steal again. I'll pop the steal because we're not going to come back here. And outside of that, your only real concern here now is really the boss. Also, there is one enemy. Okay, perfect. The dragons. The flame dragons do shoot out of combat, like such. They also do have a little bit more HP than some of the other enemies here, although Pictomancer may not even care because of the damage output that you have. But that's the other one you want to be concerned with, that they do that. So if you're wondering, like, why is there an AoE randomly on my feet, that is coming from the flame dragons on this floor set. Can bombs be slept? Good question. Let's go sleep. The answer is yes, it can be slept. Now, in terms of like the enrage that I was talking about though, the self-destruct is an instant cast, so it just kind of goes boom. And with it being on like this kind of constant timer for that enrage, even if it's slept, it will keep pushing towards that timer. So if you sleep it and like leave it out long enough and it just comes chasing you, it'll just self-destruct. So, but it does sleep. Another rage here, I might use it. We'll see. Yeah, I'll probably use it. Hold. Ooh. Healing. Now, if you notice that that silver chest exploding does do splash damage on the enemies, so it does also affect the enemies on top of yourself. Yeah, maybe I don't use the rage because it's going away from me. Okay, this is the exit. I probably just forced the stream then. Another rage, and something just spawned. Because I heard it. Ooh, a Mimic. We should still kill it in time before it gets into the Infatuation. We haven't even talked about it yet because we haven't received Infatuation. But the moment we do, we'll discuss about what Pox and Infatuation does. Would I say we have the new easiest class? You know, it's a really good question in terms of the topic of Pictomancer. Deep Dungeon in itself will never be easy, right? So no matter what you do, no matter what job you're taking in, this is very difficult content. Now, the burst that Pictomancer does provide next to this is extremely appealing, and maybe in the right hands, you could definitely do a lot with it. There's still weaknesses that are involved with this class that, even though the burst looks amazing, you are trying to maximize and optimize its burst to give you the highest advantage. So if you don't give it the highest advantage, then you're definitely leaving yourself vulnerable. But this job can certainly kill quite a lot of things that some jobs have trouble with, and it's very appealing. But I would still say that, you know, something like some of the other classes could still be appealing as well, you know, like the popular ones, Reaper, Sage, Warrior, Machinist, those ones in general. I think how you look at it, though, is that they're all in their own category of things, you know? Like, Pictomancer will do what it does really, really well. Machinist will do what it does really, really well. Warrior will do what it does really, really well. And so you kind of look at it that. Now, it's about picking your favorite flavor, not so much that one flavor is far superior than the other. And if anything, we're going to put on display what Picto can do about what the job's capable of. I mean, if anything, right now, up until this floor set, you're seeing that its speed and burst of getting through the floors is very, very good compared to a lot of other jobs. I think Pictomancer is the only job that can potentially kill a high floor Mimic before it applies Pox. So, in the assumption, Emmy, that you have a full burst, I can definitely confirm to you from my own personal experience that you can kill up to a 171 Mimic with your full burst. And we're talking like Mogpalm, full hammer, swift into wing muse into Mog Cannon, or Mog Beam, whatever it's properly called. And with that damage, with maybe a lucky crit here and there, lucky damage roll, you do kill the Mimic in time. But that's the furthest you're getting. I think when I did it the one time, I got it to literally 0.2% and then it got the pox off, so that was like kind of like, you know, heartbreaking, but still, I mean, watching a Mimic melt, and by the way, with Strength on, I do wanna specify that it's with Strength on. Now, without Strength on, maybe a 151 Mimic, maybe a 141 Mimic. Strength, of course, makes a rather big deal. But, yeah. Oh, hi. Okay, well, I guess I'm gonna fight you then. This Scorpion is worth talking about. It does do a pull-in like it does right there, so you want to be careful when you pull it that you're not also getting pulled into a trap. As you can see, 2 enemies wailing on me. My HP is a little bit spicy there. I didn't use anything though. No heals, no shielding, so that's one thing to know. Already an 86. Already an 86. 9 minutes into the 4th. But yeah, that Scorpion is probably one of the other ones you want to be concerned with in terms of this floor, just because of that mechanic. If you run into a no knockback, then it doesn't actually pull you in. Doing an affluence here. Okay, pulling the Scorpion right now. Priority. Well, it is sight, so it's not too bad of a pull. The worms here are sound, so you can bypass them, but we'll just get rid of it right now. They don't shoot afar like the ones later on. They just kind of exist. They do put a dot on you if you fight them, but the dot's not that too bad. And usually it's probably dead by the time the dot even comes out. More dragons that are gonna shoot at me from afar, as one did already. Ooh, rage. Thinking about it, okay, we're gonna pop the rage here. The reason I'll pop the rage is because the dragons, like I said, have a higher HP pool. Look at the HP here. Look at this. 11,732, okay? Now look at it when we fight. Actually, actually, this is a bad example. The Chimera will be very similar in terms of HP. Actually, they have even more HP. Okay, for the sake of demonstration, let me take this rage into something else. So remember, 13,000 HP for the Chimera, 11,000 for the dragon. Also note that the rage does 100% damage to the enemy, so that's why that's exactly the amount of HP that the enemy has. That's why I know that. So okay, Scorpion. Look at the amount of damage here. 7,800. So that's a big difference. Like, that's like 4,000, 3,000 off of the 5,000 HP difference from a smaller enemy to a bigger enemy. So if you feel like these enemies are beefier, they're taking longer to kill, it's because they are taking longer to kill. Alright, Serenity, off to the next 4. Okay, 2 more floors to the boss, and a Potsherd. That's huge, considering we are working with very minimal Potsherds right now. So that's another drop right there. That was worth checking the bronze chest for that one. So again, it is a rare chance to get it down here. It's a much higher chance on the higher floors, but still getting one is really, really nice to see it. Steel, which I'll use in a bit. Let me check the chest first. And a Lust. Okay, let's get off the floor first, and then pop the steel on our way out so we carry it into the boss. Kind of optimization of the buffs there. Fortune and... Fortune. Okay, 2 fortunes here. Still have that Strength on. We'll probably use the Strength later. A bunch of worms here. I'm gonna wait for it to get pulled, because if I pop with my Mog, I will probably hit the other one. I'm not in the mood to do that at the moment. Again, these are sound. Lusts. And I'm gonna walk here so we don't get the aggro. Kind of unnecessary, but we'll just do it anyway. Nice strength, because that will probably carry us into the boss there. So we'll definitely take advantage of that. And then I have a steal going into the next board. Okay, steel coming in, which I'm pretty sure it's this chest or the other one, I don't remember. Okay, last floor, 89. And just to remind you, like, we haven't really talked much about a lot of the enemies, because they're basically dead by the time we deal with them. But that'll definitely change on the higher floors, you know. We'll definitely be starting, I believe, 101. We'll definitely talk more about the enemies, of what you're pulling, since they'll typically last a little bit longer. First case of the Eureka, that is sound as well. Chimeras are proximity, if, you know, you weren't sure about that, but they are proximity. And they're patrols, so... Alright, let's try to get this chest here. I don't, you know, actually, no, I'm not gonna get that chest. My pawns are, like, really good. We accidentally pulled the dragon here, but that's fine, because of the beam. But no big deal. Gonna aggro the crawler on purpose here. Just does a conal, which does put a dot on you if you get hit with it. Holding. Okay. Palace Eureka again is sound. I could just blow it up, but I'll just walk past it just to demonstrate that it is sound. Sound, we are RP walking to walk past it. You can see the symbol on the upper right corner that we are walking. There's a button that keyboard mouse has. There's a button that controller can do as well to kind of slow walk like that. That's how you get past Sound Aggro. How bad is Pox? So Pox is more... Pox is like a mosquito bite, not like a freaking, like, you know, flesh wound, if you will. It's annoying, but it's more annoying because you have to kind of burn sustaining potions just to keep your HP up. So basically, Pox, what it'll do is that it'll give Infatuation, which is a 10-minute debuff, no HP regeneration, a DOT on you, and lower damage. Now, as Pictomancer, you don't really care about that lower damage. It's more the HP regeneration and the DOT, because no HP regeneration actually is something you may not realize is really bad, because you do have a passive HP regen when you're fighting things, so you're actually getting HP back every server tick. But to negate that plus getting a dot, you actually feel less defensive against enemies. So longer fights will feel even worse, even bosses will feel even worse because of having that Pox on. Now, later when I start getting them, I'll discuss, like, you know, what to do about how to manage impurity, so on and so forth. But it's definitely more of an annoyance than really a huge detriment, except if you have it on the boss, because on the bosses, that's really bad to have it on bosses, but, you know, we'll get there eventually. Godmother, welcome to Godmother. She, like Godfather, will have set positions on the bombs that exist, and we'll definitely showcase a handful of mechanics here, just in case, you know, you mess up some things or whatever it might be. I will just fight this normally. We're also going to be using quite a lot of sustaining potions just to be doing this boss, and also for the demonstration. So let's pull it. Here, you're going to be dealing with 2 adds you need to kill, as opposed to 1 on Godfather. Also, the adds will show up on very specific markers, so I'm going to be positioning this boss in favor of where those adds do show up. Also, notice the amount of damage we're already taking. So the first bomb that you need to kill will be roughly around where I have this boss kind of located right now. So right, literally on top of her. This is a set location. This does not change, no matter how many times you fight this. I'm gonna pop the first potion here. As you see, as I kind of previewed in the beginning of the set, this will be the first boss where you actually start to legitimately use potions. So the next bomb that spawns will be on top of this boss right around the middle side. Now, what I'm going to demonstrate here is what happens when you don't kill the ad. Now, for Pictomancer, you really should kill the ad. Like, honestly, with all your freaking smash damage, like, you're going to eventually kill it even by accident. But we're going to showcase to you what happens when you don't. Basically what it'll do when that burst goes off, it'll do about 80% of your max HP worth of damage. So I don't think steel actually mitigates it, but it will do a lot. So here, if it happens to go off, I'm gonna prep a potion here. Boom, I'm gonna heal for it, no problem. Now, the bomb I need to park under the boss is going to show up right about the middle. And we need to make sure that blue bomb is under the boss, because what it's going to do is that it's going to stun the boss to stop Massive Burst, which is casting it right now. Pictomancer, you want to be careful. All of your spells, all of your muses and everything is AoE, so you want to watch out not to use those spells, because you may accidentally kick the bomb away from the boss. So be very, very, very careful about that with your spells. Kind of a unique Pictomancer issue, right? So just do GCDs, maybe cast your, a really good time to cast your motifs while you're waiting for that massive burst and that bomb to explode. Now we're gonna deal with the second set of ads. The rotation resets, but now the ads are in different spots in different rotations because now we're further into it. We're going to kill this ad first. I'm gonna get my motif up here. We are currently 3 sustaining potions into this fight. It could be a lot less if we killed the boss earlier. Usually I actually kill this boss before that other bomb shows up with a lust. But again, we're kind of delaying this fight just to show you a little bit more of it. Now the next bomb I believe might be towards the southwest coming up here. I'm going to wait for it to show up and then we're going to kill it properly right over there. Perfect. Alright. Now, the next blue bomb that will show up will be around the northeast corner over here. Now, how you handle the blue bomb, let's actually give a good example here. Let me park the boss, like, way over here. So, if you were to misposition the boss, if you didn't kind of use that kind of predictive spots where the bombs were going to be in pre-position, basically how you handle this mechanic are 2 ways. You can do a melee hit here. Boom, you can smack it in. You can also do a regular hit here to push it over. You basically want to get it under the boss. Now, for some reason, let's say, we're doing the thingy and we kind of accidentally push it out. It's like, oh no, we failed the mechanic. So, one thing to note about Massive Burst, it does 99% of your HP. Hopefully you haven't used a shield by now. I'm going to pop a shield here. It's going to mitigate some of that damage. And the way to survive that is just making sure that your HP is capped off. So if you're missing just a slither of HP, you are dying to Massive Burst, because again, it does 99% of your max HP. But if you have your heals ready, if you had your shield available, you'll have no problem surviving it if you make that horrible, horrible mistake of failing that mechanic. So that's kind of your multiple ways of what happens when you fail those things, because some people have failed the ad spawn, some people have failed the giddy bomb parking on the boss, but that's at least to showcase like you have ways options to use to be able to get past those catastrophic mistakes, if you will. And that is 81 to 90. Welcome to 91 to 100. Coming off of the 90 boss, we had used a couple sustaining potions. We used about 5. And to be fair, I used a little bit more because we had tried to demonstrate a handful of things on the boss. So if you had limited amount of sustaining potions, you probably would get away with, honestly, really, you get away with like 2. Now we had picked one. So we started the whole thing at floor 1 with 20 sustaining potions. We picked up a Potsherd at floor 50, which is the guaranteed. So what I'm going to be doing right now is I'm going to exchange that singular Potsherd that we got to push myself up to 35, because we may need a couple for the 100 boss. What I will be planning to do on the 100 boss is that we are going to do a 2 resolution strategy on that boss. Now, I would like to keep the guide kind of Pictomancer centric and just focus in on just Pictomancer, but one thing that I will suggest is giving a little gander at the live tutorial from Machinist, because the live tutorial from Machinist actually will have a multitude of resolution strategies. We'll have one that involves using 3 of them, which is like the mega safe one. We have one that involves only 1 of them, which is typically what I will do on a regular run. And then we have a crazy one which involves no resolutions, which I highly do not recommend. Why I would point you in that direction is just because the way you handle the boss is actually pretty similar from Machinist to Pictomancer in general, the general sense of things, so there won't be too much of a variance of how you're doing that. Today we'll do the 2 tincture strats on this run. I'm sorry, the 2 resolution Pomanders. As like a medium safe spawn, like it's kind of safe, whichever kind of will be most comfortable to you, that's what we're going to do today. And you're going to see kind of Pictomancer, kind of as always, kind of flying through these floors. Our armor is currently 6871. We'll definitely get a lot of upgrades if we see silver chests, as well as the guaranteed Potsherd at 100, and the guaranteed 1+1 on the 100 boss. So let's hop on in and let's blow stuff up on Pictomancer. Let's do it. As always, motifs come up, and kind of as always, I have been starting off with a strength. Now, fun thing here, we actually get the opening resolution. So we're going to demonstrate that. Let me just kind of see what the rooms look like. So the opening resolution, what it's going to be good for on this specific floor is that it is going to be useful on enemies that are defined as Ashkin, or in a more easier way to remember it is anything undead. So we're going to pop that resolution since we're capped. The mummy is going to die, I believe, in one shot here. Ground targeted AoE, we hit the mummy, it will also stun it. It actually moved out of it, right? Nope. So it's gonna die. So you're going to instantly kill a lot of these enemies because of the resolution. Really nice to kind of, one, get practice on because you'll be using it on the boss. But two, you know, you get a couple quick kills. Now, these, well, is that a mummy? That is a mummy. Okay, this is a really good example. So you'll see the mummy die here, but the swarm isn't undead. So you'll see the difference in damage here. So you want to be doing definitely the undead there, but that's just an example of what it looks like when you're not hitting an undead enemy. Now, sometimes on the early bits of these floors, you'll have a lot of enemies that are not undead kind of scattered around, so it could make it a little tricky to kind of ground target, but that's kind of the usage of the resolution there. Now, the three things we had just... Actually, the four things we had just killed as a quick review, but we'll try to pull them as well. The Palace Mummy is proximity. The Wraith is proximity as well, but it is a patrol. The Swarm is sound, and the Roselet is sound as well. So we're gonna pull the Roselet here. It's gonna die really fast, but it is sound. One really good thing about this, because it is sound, you can just walk right through it. In RP walking is what I mean, to get past it. So and they're also one of the easier ones to fight in as a range class. So they're definitely ideal to kind of pick on. But because you have a handful of proximity enemies like the mummies, those are the ones that you may want to prioritize on, because they'll just be in your way. The swarms, again, are sound, so we don't have to deal with them. What they do... Actually, I will pull this. What they will do is that they will do an on-drain. So every time they hit you, they drain some HP back. It's one of the fights I don't particularly enjoy, just because it's just like... It's just going to be longer than some of the other pulls you have. Of course, with Pictomancer's damage, it's like... It doesn't really matter, because you kill things so fast. But it is still worth noting. Into 92, we're gonna try to pull the two that I mentioned earlier, which are the mummy and the ghost. Yeah. Oh, another resolution. So let me just pull the mummy first, just because we haven't really fought it directly. It's probably just gonna die. But and another resolution. They just want me to blow up this floor. They're gonna open with the conal, kind of similar to the mummies earlier. Which I don't even know if we even got to see the mechanics of the mummy anyway. But there you go. It's dead, but it is a priority pull because of the proximity. It's just really funny with Pictomancer, because things die so fast. There's not... It's like, I can talk about them, but maybe... Oh, I used the wrong one. Oops, that's a lust. That's okay. We'll go with the resolution. No big deal. Do this one. I'm gonna check the other room after we kill that mummy. Pictomancer is going to be pretty hilarious on the earlier floors in general, just because... You'll probably kill things before they even get to any mechanics, and I could talk about that, but most of the time you're probably not going to get to it. One fun interaction here is that in transformation mode, we can open bronze chests. Only bronze chests. If I go up to this gold chest over here, it will give me an error, because it's just a different mechanic in the game. So if you kind of see me opening chests, it's only the bronze chests that I'm doing that to, not the gold or the silver chests in this case. Gonna use the steel here. Gonna check the other rooms for the other chests. Gonna pull this, blow it up. Oh, pull that way. Okay. Had a bunch of enemies on the exit. Safety is good. Redo the motif. I'm gonna try to, like, maybe get a little repetitive on that one, just because it might be really good to condition yourself if you're not kind of getting yourself conditioned on motif pre-casting, because it really sucks on Pictomancer, especially the higher and higher you get, if you don't actually pre-prep the motif. Like, it's actually really bad. Like, you could actually cause some significant issues on the pull because you didn't get the damage prepared in time. And we're still not quite out of here. We have a rage, so I'll just take this. Let me see if I can get a really weird interaction with this enemy. Let me see if I can pull this off. Hold on. Oh, I didn't get it. Sometimes what can happen with the swarm in a rage is that you will hit it, which should kill it, but it would get the server tick on the heal because it heals every melee hit, and it can actually be alive after the rage attack. So if you ever have that happen to you, that's the reason. It's just a weird server tick healing part while getting hit with the rage. Very hard to like do on demand, but sometimes you accidentally do it just because timing gets weird. We'll get rid of the mummy here. Oh, I didn't get my motif up. Oops. Okay, roselets I can walk past, which I may. I mean, I can blow them up, but it's fine. We have haste as well. Got the lust back. Never punished in this game. Never punished. Hippographs here are going to be sight. Totally sight. Yep. So what's really kind of confusing sometimes is that they do look differently. They do have different names. Hippo Seraph, and I believe the ones that are proximity are going to be Hippogriff. But depending on which floor set you're on, they will aggro differently. If you're just kind of looking at what their model is. Flight will cut the enemies I need to get off the floor in half, so we'll definitely use that for speed. Because obviously we're not going fast enough on Pictomancer. Gonna kill this one, so I can get to some of these chests that are available to me. Gonna GCD here. Gonna pull this one with the hammer and the beam. And it's dead. I actually have one more hammer. Let me try to pull the mummy that's here before the hammer goes. Perfect. Gonna go pallet here just because I want to get some extra damage out. I've mentioned this before, but I typically don't use pallet too much. Unless I kind of want that extra damage, because the problem with pallet that you can run into is it is a longer cast and you're committed to the 3 GCDs, so having a longer cast while trying to kite can be a little bit detrimental to your survival. So you won't see me use it very often, except for bosses. That's where you're gonna really see me utilize pallet, but a lot of times I just stay with my regular GCD. Picking up the strength here, I aggroed something. Ooh, the Wraith, why? Thank you for showing up! So this is going to be a proximity patrol here. It's going to do your typical attacks, which is the AoE Scream. On this case, you just have to run away from it because we don't have an interrupt. But usually with the kiting, we're probably going to be staying away from it. It doesn't do the follow-up Recursive Pox like the later ones do. Well, specifically the 191 plus one does, but pretty good enemy. However, it's usually one that you will have to fight just because they are patrol as well. So it might get a little annoying to dodge them, but they die really fast, so you probably want to just kill them out. How do casters deal with no abilities? Because a lot of Pictomancer power comes from abilities. Literally, more than likely just the Serenity. Midnight. Like, you can get away with a lot on Pictomancer. I would say Blind is probably one that you may want to concern yourself with as well, just because if you miss on a burst, that's a course, by the way, that is a proximity enemy. Just because, if you miss on Blind, it can cause a lot of issues with trying to get your damage off. Ooh. Hold on. Okay, I have Steel on, so we're actually gonna try to fight through this. One of which is the Roselet. I'm not too concerned about the Roselet there. So we're gonna take care of the Swarm and this guy. No witching needed here. This one does really, really slow damage, so I'm not really overly concerned with it. Now, this course over here, actually, I believe the course I had just killed was a patrol. I honestly don't even remember anymore. Anyway, you do have the Iron Course here that is a patrol. When you pull him, he will jump at you. It is proximity as well. He will jump at you as a gap closer with extra damage. So this one is also kind of annoying like the Wraiths, but so they might be a kill that you have to do just simply because they just get in your way. Going back to what we're talking about here, Blind is definitely one you want to be concerned about with Pictomancer. If you start missing some of your big abilities, you start keeping fights alive long, and when fights are going longer and longer on Pictomancer, you are certainly more susceptible to dying, especially on the higher floors. With no abilities, you literally can't do any of your muses. You only have your GCDs, you can't even go into palette, so you're pretty much like just disabled on Pictomancer, so usually it involves a Serenity usage here. Let me use the Affluence and also kill that mummy because that is blocking the exit. I can probably get away with the hit though. Now, one thing to take into consideration though, a caster weakness that I would say is pretty bad for almost all the casters is HP down. Because HP down, you already have a tricky amount of defense, so having less HP makes that even worse. But with Pictomancer, because you are so powerful and so strong, you can actually get away with a max HP down by utilizing your burst and killing stuff before it gets to you. So you kind of have a little bit of a balancing act there. I would even argue that you could probably get away with no items as well, because of how powerful you can be. So while you may Serenity something like this, perfect example, I love when we talk about these things and then it just shows up. As opposed to other places, other jobs where you would get rid of the HP down, get rid of the no items, you kind of balance it differently in this job where maybe you actually fight through HP down and you fight through no items, but then you start Serenitying the no abilities and the blind and so on and so forth. You know, it's very dependent on the job. Now here's a really, really solid example of a situation, a very niche situation that we're sitting in. We are in 95, so there's a lot of undead. We are presented with yet another resolution. So what we're actually going to do here is, because we can still use the resolution in no abilities, we are going to use this to get off the floor as opposed to using the Serenity. So it is a course that I fought. The Iron course is the patrol. These guys are just gonna double attack followed by usually a catapult, but they do that in the higher floor. So in this case, I don't have the Serenity, but rather I'm going to try to use the resolution to get off of here. And that's an option. And honestly, like, I would have chosen to do this too if I didn't have the free resolution in the chest, because this is one way I can get through, because I'm not hindered by the lack of my abilities here, and I kind of compensate that by using a resolution. That's one way to kind of look into it and think about it. Okay, that died in one shot. Let's get over here to see what else I can get to. First case of the Dark Dragon. The Dark Dragon will shoot out of combat. It also does have a beefy amount of HP, so you probably won't be surprised here if that thing does not die in one shot, which it didn't even come close. So the difference there is that I am one-shotting almost the Knight and the Corpse and the Mummy, but then we don't even come close to one-shotting the Dragoon and it needs a double tap. But like, if this was a normal floor, like, I could still deal with this floor because we're still on the lower one. Oh, and we got a Serenity anyway. I was still on the lower floor, so I can still kind of just work my GCD and all that stuff, but it is kind of dependent on floor and enemies that you're fighting through. What about Gloom on the higher floors? Sometimes it's a little dependent, Ether Bunny, on probably what my buffs are. Like, if I have a strength or steel rolling, I would be willing to fight through a Gloom floor because I can at least survive. And it also, again, depends on the enemies that you're actually up against. Like, let's talk about, like, 181 plus, where, let's say 181 to 183. A lot of the enemies are going to be manageable there, and I would be willing to try to fight those with relying on Pictomancer's burst, but I wouldn't do that on, like, 187, 188 against, like, worms and dragons and so on and so forth. Or another example, a really good example, is 177 plus, where we start seeing Anzus. Pictomancer can handle Anzus, but I probably wouldn't do that in a Gloom floor. I could be confident on the floor non-Gloom and have enough power, but if I leave that fight longer and longer, then it gets more dangerous and so on and so forth. So that's one way to look at it too. It's very dependent on the situation at hand. Yeah, it's hard to say. Like, it isn't like a blanket response, like, if this, then this, because there's a lot of dependencies on what you're actually dealing with on the floor. Like, going out. Let's go. Palms are pretty solid. Moving along at a really nice pace on Pictomancer. It's one of the things that you'll get to enjoy in this job, I think. I've heard people comment on that, is that Picto goes fast. Whether you're intending to or not, it's just because of its raw power and kind of its out of combat preparation. You just naturally go really fast. We're gonna fight the Gourmand here. It is a proximity. It's just the first case of it, so we're just pulling it just to showcase. It usually opens with a double attack called Beatdown. That's about all it does. Later floors, they will become patrols. But 100 floors from now, they will be kind of similar to here. And as you can see, like, Pictomancer, you know, we're still a caster, so we're taking quite the hits without Steel on. This one will jump at me, so I'm actually gonna pep a Temper Coat just to kind of prep for that jump, and he broke it with a crit. So that's good timing, I guess, on my part. One-on-one, Pictomancer will be still pretty good, even though some of these pulls are getting a little spicy. I mean, you could really save up your burst to really kind of take him out. But once you start dealing with kind of multiple, it could get very, very dicey on the Pictomancer, specifically because of your lower defense. Alright, and that Knight, by the way, had to be a priority pull because it was right on top of the exit, so you needed to make sure that you at least killed it, being one of your kills. Ideally before the exit opens, if you can help it. Witching's about, I will not use them, but it would actually be really good to use them here to kind of help you out to kill some of these enemies so they become a little bit more tame. If it hasn't been mentioned before, when you use a Witching, right here it says transforms all targets within range for a frog, imp, or chicken, and depending on what it changes into, you can determine how much damage it's actually doing to you. So if you consider 1000 damage is maximum damage, a frog will deal down to like almost double digits, so like, you know, 10 to 20, like really not that much. A chicken will do maybe roughly 30 to 50%, so you're looking at maybe 300 to 500 damage as opposed to 1k. An imp will be a little closer to like 70, 80%. So you're probably looking at like 700, 800. So you want to see toads, you don't want to see imps, is generally what you want to do when you do a witching. But either way, they're not doing mechanics, which is sometimes, you know, still better off than anything else, even if it turns into an imp. I believe we had a patrol floating around here. Ooh, we have a first case of the Gravekeeper. The Gravekeeper are sound. Actually, it's going to be moving at a pretty good speed, so I won't be able to walk next to it. It is a sound patrol. One of the harder hitting enemies, I would say later on, they're going to be one of the things that just hits you the hardest. And I would probably say here, they probably hit you the hardest. They only double attack, so they do attack, double attack, when they get to you. Similar to when you fight a Gourmand. But you can avoid them, it just becomes intimidating when you have to deal with like multiple of them. Knights will kind of do similar things where they're going to do double attacks. Eventually they will do an attack bonus if you keep them alive long enough, but you probably wouldn't be keeping them alive long enough. Here's a great example of kind of demonstrating the Gravekeeper being sound, while we get the Knight, which is proximity, so a little bit difference there, right? Didn't aggro the Gravekeeper, but aggroed the Knight instead. Now, one thing I do like to sometimes do if you have an excess of resolution, walking into 97, one thing you may notice, if you haven't noticed already, is that almost every single enemy you walk into here are going to be undead. And so using a resolution is actually really advantageous because you literally can kill everything, as opposed to the earlier floor where you still had the Roselettes, and you had the Swarms, and you had the Hipposurfs, where they were not undead. Now, it's you know, if you're comfortable on the boss, being able to do like a limited resolution strat, whether it's 1, whether it's 2, then that's something that you can definitely consider. Hold on. That's definitely something you can consider on your own run, if you want to use one here to kind of go a little bit faster. I had to be a little cautious here. If I actually got that course while I was fighting the Gourmand, that either was going to be an instant steal or witching, because the damage was going to be pretty high. I am kind of staying a little cautious here. I may actually go with this witching here. Yep. It's a lot of damage I'm taking. I want to avoid the usage of my potion, so that's why the HP is going to be a little spicy here. Because I'm trying to not use those sustaining potions. Now, this is a really tricky floor. This is actually going to the conversation we talked about earlier about, you know, what do you do with Gloom? And 91 is a set that can get a little treacherous. Like, you know, it's not a pushover floor like it was with 51, 61. Things are gonna start hitting you a little respectably, especially the boss coming up. So, and especially with you being a caster and you do have the lack of the kiting like a machinist or something, It is one you may want to at least pay attention to and give a little extra care. Like, if you're getting a little spooked by the damage, I would probably recommend a Serenity here, or even consider a steal going into this floor. But here we're just gonna be playing a little carefully, making sure I don't make any bad aggros. We have a Gravekeeper that's floating around. I'm gonna hold here to get the silver chest. 74 now. I'm gonna see where this one goes. He's going here. So I'm actually gonna let him through, or I will kill it. No, I will kill it. Reason here is because I have my hammer running, and I'm gonna lose the hammer in a little bit. Also gonna Swift. Go here. Boom. Ooh, uh-oh. I'm gonna potion. Gonna wishing. Yeah, what I said about being careful. May consider a sustaining here, or a steal. I'm gonna consider a sustaining here. The sustaining will be like really good to keep me up here on its own. Oh, that's kind of bad. Gonna witching again, and now I'm gonna steal because it's getting a little dumb, and I'm gonna keep the sustaining running through. Yet another patrol going here. So this was in consideration of the damage coming in. Didn't see that patrol either. So now we're out of witchings, but that was me trying to be a little conservative. But it's also to showcase what you may run into for this floor. Good showcase, honestly. Like I always kind of mention how on these runs you want to see me have issues. You don't want to see me kind of fly through the floors, because then, you know, what happens if you have issues on the floor? What am I supposed to do if you run into some bad issues? So this was actually a really good example of our decision making on really bad floors here. And it didn't help we had the damage down on that floor too. So that's actually one of the first challenging floors you run into right there. Do I have a thought process on how to decide what rooms to explore when the room has multiple paths? Kind of. So one of the things I like to do generally, I'll never punish on the steal. What I like to do generally, hold on, trying to decide what to do here, is if I recognize the exit twice cast, I like to go away from the exit, because at least one, I know the exit is over there, and I want to check the rooms that are going to potentially have chests, because what would suck is that you would open the exit and start going, like, across the map from the exit, when you're naturally going to end up at the exit, you know what I mean? So you'd rather check all the rooms away from the exit and then start converging into the exit once you're getting close to opening the room. If I can do that, that's great, but sometimes it's really just roll the dice, go one direction, hope for the best. Now, sometimes, we had this discussion in Discord a little bit, sometimes you can actually recognize dead-end rooms. One of the ones that my buddy Biftech, who always talks about that he had recognized, you know, staircases lead into dead ends sometimes. There are sometimes features you can actually recognize on a room or on a floor set that's like, oh, this is going to be a dead end. And you want to kind of handle those so that, you know that you don't have to actually travel multiple rooms, because you don't want to backtrack too much. If you backtrack too much, it's a lot of walking time and a lot of time wasted just for literally moving around. So you kind of want to go a little optimally in that sense. But yeah, a lot of times it helps when I try to recognize the exit sooner rather than later. And with that end twice cast, it isn't so much revealing the exit on the actual tile map. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about. Sometimes, okay, you see this, okay, let's see, okay, you see this angle right here? This camera angle that I have, you see at the top left corner of my map? Actually, oh, you can't see it because chat's actually blocking it. Let me change the angle here. Okay, let's just say like over here. This will be good. See, it's the center over here. So like I can vaguely see the blue orb on my screen here. So I technically don't have to go into this room right now. I know the exit is here, and so let's just start exploring everything else around it and then come back here and converge over there. Also kind of adding to that in terms of navigation, a lot of times you'll see me kind of pull enemies that are blocking my way, not so much clearing the room. So in this instance, pulling that Gormon was very specific because, one, I don't have to pull these two enemies here because they're not blocking me. I can travel to this room, A-okay, and I could travel to the other room, A-okay. So there is a little bit of that pull priority and choice that I'm making so that I don't, like, overkill. Of course, like, you know, if you're going for scoring, it's going to be a little bit of a different philosophy, but if you're just trying to get out as soon as you can, that's one thing to really consider, especially on the higher floors, that you don't literally fight everything in front of you. You kind of pick and choose what you're fighting so that you'll take a little bit of time checking those chests and whatnot. After the dragon shoots me, he's going to end up moving almost most of the time. I'd say 9 times out of 10. So that's one thing with enemies that have out-of-combat AoEs, is that their mechanic usually means if they shoot at you, then they will then start moving in whatever direction that they were planning to move. Now, regular enemies kind of move a little bit on random intervals, however, they don't move literally randomly. They will usually move and wait at least like 10-15 seconds before they move again. So it is going to be good to kind of observe if they move, like, okay, see that course that just moved? I know he moved, he's not going to move again for about 10 to 15 seconds. So a lot of times it helps you when you're trying to squeeze your way through to a room, or to a section of the room, or to the exit, that you wait for that movement, see where it is, and then you're good for a little bit of clearance on time. Alright, last floor here. Now, oh, raising. Kind of a little late, but that's fine. One thing I had been suggesting on the previous floors, probably even leading up into the floor 90 boss, is that you can totally use a Strengthened Steel on 9, and then to carry you into 100, or into the boss floor, rather. In this instance, I actually would recommend not doing that, and maybe either killing a couple things, or waiting till you get into the boss floor, because the boss actually is a little beefy and it takes a little bit of time. So there's a possibility if you use it now and it took you a long time to get off this floor specifically, you may have to use it again, because you will want bare minimum a steal on the boss, because the boss is going to hit you, well, not necessarily the boss, but the ads on the boss. Here's another example, by the way, Twice Cast. In this angle here, yes, you can see it here. I'm looking at my screen here. You can see the blue orb here. I didn't reveal this room yet. I know this is the exit. So what I'm going to do, because I do want to check chests, I want to get the silver chests and so on, I'm going to now go the opposite direction, because I know that direction is the exit. And check what's over here, and then start backtracking towards the exit, and then start working my way through, through whatever is blocking the exit. So that's kind of my methodology usually when it comes to that. And actually a really good question, because I think that's one thing I take for granted. Even though I talk about floor navigation and optimal movement, that's one thing that I think I do pretty unconsciously as I go through. Note that our arm and armor is climbing up a lot. Like, I think we started at 68 arm, and we kind of put it all in arm, but it is climbing up pretty well, so... We did start this run at 59, 15... Oh, actually, no, we started this run, I think, at 58, 52. So now we're at a pretty cool level here. And that's also taking into consideration, too, you know, I'm saying that the 100 boss is going to be a little tougher, is going to hit you a little bit harder, especially with the ads. With a lower arm and armor, you are operating at a little bit lower power level, so whatever I'm saying kind of gets a little bit multiplied by difficulty, but it's not that big of a deal. Totally clearable, totally doable, but definitely worth noting in terms of making sure that you have a steal for the boss. Gonna clear up whatever else we have left. I believe we did pull and talk about everything, so we shall move on. Alright, let me just make sure if I can check this chest, especially because it is a silver chest. Everything has been going into arm, which is fine, I'm not going to really complain. I might get this tonight. Oh, I did not. Okay. Okay, welcome to the 100 boss. Here we're going to do a 2 resolution strat. As mentioned in the previous, in the beginning of this floor set, if you kind of want to see the other versions of how many resolutions you do on this fight, I may recommend checking our live tutorial on Machinist, which has a 3 resolution, a 1 resolution, and a 0 resolution. So here we'll kind of cover the last bit of a 2 resolution, and I would say the 2 resolution strategy is going to be a lot more normal for people to do. It's like semi-safe. It's not the most riskiest way, nor is it the most safest way, but it's like a nice median for at least reserving a resolution, because usually we do use a resolution for the 140 boss, so it would be kind of nice to have at least 1 available for that floor. So going with 2 here, you keep 1 guaranteed, assuming you have 3. Now also what we're going to do here is we're going to be popping a Lust on top of that. So we're going to see that to kind of utilize the Lust in this fashion. Here we're going to be using a Strength and a Steel to kind of help us out. when we pull this boss, it's going to do kind of normal attacks, normal telegraph, so on and so forth, but it will do its first set of adds at 90%. With Pictomancer, you're going to see that very quickly, because we're going to push this boss very fast. And you're going to see me use quite a bit of sustaining potions here to kind of keep ourselves up. Here you're going to see the first set of adds coming up here. I'm going to take some time to get my motifs up, and I'm going to pop a shield and wait for these adds to come in. Once these adds come in, I'm going to use the Lust to kind of help me out with overall damage. Boom, boom, and then we're going to go Lust. Now the thing, why I like to use Lust at 90 when the first set of adds on, simply because I get to use the Lust on the adds as well, so I kill them all at the same time. We're going to be going for 5 stacks here for the vulnerability, the maximum that we can get to. Now these adds, even though they're quote-unquote dead, they're not completely dead. They will get re-risen by the Necromancer, which is where the resolution will come into play. You're going to see the next set of adds show up at about 64%, and once they show up, that's where you're going to see me utilize a resolution for our first one. I'm going to repop a sustaining potion here because the adds are coming back up. Pictomancer is going to be nice because you have a lot of splash damage, so sometimes you may just kill the adds kind of, you know, regular, just because of your regular damage. Here I'm going to pop the resolution with the sustaining potion on. You're going to see these dead enemies go away. You're going to see a white flash. That means they are now removed from the battlefield. Also, the resolution kills the adds that we just spawned, but you need to double tap them. It's almost like zombie rules. You need to double tap the zombies to make sure they're dead. So now you no longer see their bodies, and that's why they will no longer come back to the battlefield. Again, I'm going to stress, double tap the bodies, because some people, they do the resolution, they understand that it one-shots, but they don't actually hit them twice, and they don't make sure the bodies are gone, and then they're still kind of getting attacked by those adds, and they're kind of wondering, you know, what happened, like, you know, and that's the special mechanic of the resolution. We're going to be getting to the third set of adds coming up, which are going to show up at about 39%, and then we'll pop the second resolution to get rid of those 3 adds. Gonna maintain my damage here. We have actually the Lust falling off, so I'm going to try to compile as much damage as I can. Boom, look at all that damage in the Lust here. Third set of adds are coming in. I'm going to pop a new sustaining potion. The boss is going to open with a giant Doom cast, but usually what I like to do is wait for that cast to go off before I do the resolution, because I have to move regardless. So that's the first tap to kill the adds. The second tap removes their body. You'll see a white shine. And you know, if you're kind of a little OCD like me, a little paranoid, do it 3 times just to make sure, you know. So, and there's no harm in that. The boss himself is not really going to hit you that hard, especially with the sustaining potion in the running. It's really the adds that become the massive problem on this fight. So leaving the adds out as long as you can kind of does complicate things. That's why kind of getting rid of them is the ideal thing to do. So in this case, if you kill the adds with the resolution, you can let the boss kind of wail at you, and it's perfectly fine. So here we're going to try to see if I can get away without using another sustaining potion, because we're almost done with this boss, and we're still kind of in a little bit of a conservation mode with those sustaining potions. I'm going to pop this shield here. Boom. Okay, let's see if we can wipe him out. And after those third set of adds, he doesn't... That's it. The adds are no longer going to happen. He's never going to recast them. You just kind of wipe out the boss after this point. And... dead. And you heard that sound, the shing. That's our arm and armor going up +1/+1. And as we leave here, after I get the scorecard, which is the first instance of your scorecard, which I always like to take a screenshot on, we will get our Potsherd dropping. You'll see it very quickly there, but it will get our Potsherd here. So now we have 1 Potsherd. Again, we started with 1, and now we have that 1 back. I'm not going to exchange it for now. We'll hold on to it for a little bit, but that is 91 to 100.